right, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Lockdown Showcase series. I have some lovely, beautiful, special guests with me today. If you could give me your name, your preferred pronouns, just a little quick clip of how you're doing today.
I'm Akia, she, her, hers. I am good. I'm very tired. I'm right now taking care of two small people instead of one who are on completely opposite schedules, so I don't get breaks during the day, but I'm going to sleep really, really well tonight. You're on mute, Shay.
Thanks. Well, my name is Cheyanne, she, her, and I'm doing well. I am in the process of moving and setting up my room, so I'm excited. I'm just happy to be here. I feel good. I'm gonna sleep well tonight too.
I'm Justin, here, him. I'm exhausted, juggling projects and battling these ignorant people on social media. But I got enough scotch, so I'll be sleeping good tonight.
And the pipe.
In the pipe.
In the pipe.
Hey, I'm Marcus. He, him, his. I'm doing all right. Just another day.
Hello, I'm Nicholas Johnson, he, him, and I feel pretty amazing today. I've done a couple of workouts, so I'm feeling strong and fit and in shape. And I'm starving, so I'm snacking. I'm just gonna snack just a little bit every now and then.
There with the class.
My name is Portia Burns, she, her, and I am juggling a lot myself. I live in Habersham County, small county, and we're just doing some big things, getting ready for Juneteenth on Friday, which is big for this area. So, yeah, I'm a little stressed, but good. Good stress.
Good stress.
All right, gospel choir. So happy to have you all. What are you performing today, and why did you choose that piece?
Okay, so the song that we are performing today is called Total Praise by Richard Smallwood. And basically in the song, it's a scripture, and it says, Lord, I will lift my eyes into the hills from whence cometh my help. And basically my help comes from the Lord. And to me, the song is just a go-to song that I always choose, not because I believe that it's easy for us to sing or something that we know extremely well, but more so if it just always reassures me hope. Or anytime I feel weak or down, it's just that song, just the lyrics. In the middle part, help me out, Portia. You are the source of my strength. You are the strength of my life. I believe those are the lyrics there. And just those two lines alone just always give me the power that I need to keep on going, especially with all the things that are going on right now that has been extremely draining to watch. A lot of things I can't even watch or see because it just takes so much out of me. But that song is pretty much the one that kind of empowers me to keep on moving and pushing forward.
Wow, thank you for that. I know there are only a few of you here. How many of you are actually in the Atlanta Gospel Choir?
United Praise Gospel Choir.
I'm sorry, United Praise Gospel Choir.
Yeah. So actually it started at our college up in North Georgia a long time ago. Portia Burns was actually one of the original people who started a gospel choir at Piedmont College. And then she graduated and moved on to graduate school. And then once I came, there was a little bit of a gap, and it was something that I wanted to do. And we finally got it approved to happen again. And then we kind of got it rolling. We touted it United Praise Gospel Choir. And on average, they were in between about 12 to 16 people. But it just restarts like every year. And most of the time we retain about half of the choir and half don't. So usually in between 12 to about 16, but we do, depending on the performance, will depend on the amount. So Portia also has another group, VOP.
VOW.
VOW, and like sometimes they would join with us, so it would make it bigger. Cheyanne was also a leader at some point, so she brought in her own friends. So again, just depending on who was leading, who was in the choir, it would draw, you know, a slightly bigger, or whenever the performances fell, depending on availability, it's kind of determined our numbers. But usually it had at least about 12 to 16 people in it, at least.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite experience, or what's your favorite part about coming together to sing these songs?
Oh my goodness. Hey, feel free to answer, ladies.
Oh yeah, I have something to say.
Okay.
Honestly, it was my saving grace in college. I look forward to our Sunday rehearsal. We had rehearsals on Sunday at 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. So that's at the beginning of your week. Everybody's tired. A lot of people just came home from visiting their parents. And so it wasn't always an ideal time to do anything. But I tell you, I was excited to go in that room every day. And honestly, I think that is my favorite memory just of college. I know that's not what you asked me, but like just being around like my group of people, and then creating music, and like beautiful music that you can really use to uplift you and uplift other people. That was just so special, and I miss it. I actually am very grateful for this series because it gave us an opportunity and an excuse to come together again. So I'm like, let's do it more. Take it on tour.
My favorite memory of gospel choir is the same as Shay's. My favorite part was getting to sing a different style of music that wasn't sung anywhere on campus. We had a big theater program. We had a big classical program. People sung Christian music. People sung bluegrass, but nobody sang gospel, like Black gospel. And it just gave us that opportunity to use our voices and just express ourselves in a different way. And unlike any other group, this was probably the only group that actually made me feel a lot in a good way. You know, there were just so many moves. There were just so many experiences. We didn't really always know what was going on, but there was so many just things being broken off of our lives just from singing in a group and worshiping together. And it just created a family. And we didn't just perform on campus, we performed all over. So I think my favorite memory is just rehearsing together and then performing all over together. This group was 100% optional. You didn't have to do it. It was not required. It was not a credit at all. It was just student-led, approved by the dean. And I think it says a lot that we always retain members and that it went on for so long and that people came to the performances. We always had a nice audience, and then we were invited to perform all over. So that's kind of what makes it, I don't know, that's just my favorite memory of it. That's just what got me pumped up the most. So somebody would call and say, will you guys come perform at our revival, or will you guys come perform at our youth explosion or whatever?
I would have to say my biggest memory of this was the fact that I started this gospel choir, and to graduate, not know how I was going to continue, do grad school somewhere else outside of the college. I was elated when I found out that it was still going on, that it was still going strong, that everything that I felt like would just kind of die away, those members that I had that were younger than me, they made sure that there was somebody to continue it. And like, even now, maybe not as strong as it was, but the fact that it's still going says a lot. Says a lot about the program, says a lot about the people who support it at the college.
Mm-hmm. Do any of you all have a favorite place? I know that you said you performed all over. Is there a favorite place that you have that you performed at?
Oh yeah. So we visit our friends Becca Staten's church.
I thought you would say that.
I don't know. And this is just because I never done something like this before. And I remember we were singing Break Every Chain. And I don't know what happened. I guess I was feeling it. And so I had hit my first whistle tone.
Okay, whistle.
I was like, how'd that happen? And we got it on video too, so it's somewhere. But I know that was my favorite memory, because when that happened, I remember Nick was like, hey, Cheyanne, I'm so proud of you. But it was just the first time that I really was like not in my head and not really worried about how I sounded. Like, I was really just like really in it. Like, and sometimes you don't realize how much you're really not into something. But that was when I realized how deep it really could be, like this music. And it was crazy because I didn't know I could do that. It just happened. So it was just very like revealing. And everyone was so nice and supportive about it. And it was just, I remember we ate afterwards. Everybody was just happy. I was like, man, I wish we can go on tour forever. Like, I could definitely do this, eat good food and just sing around. Yeah.
Yeah, churches would always feed us. Man, to be honest, that's a tough question. A favorite memory? I think, I don't know, there isn't one concert where I left embarrassed or feeling like the choir wasn't prepared or they didn't do what they came to do. I think my favorite memories is at some point in every concert during a praise song, like the church would go crazy or the group would go crazy and get with us. Or during a worship song, I would turn around and look at the audience and there'd be so many people just worshiping in tears. I think any of those moments were my favorite. Just any time that we were no longer just singing and sounding good, but we were actually touching people. Those are always my moments. And before every concert, we would have group prayer, and my only prayer would be, God, I pray that we make a pleasing sound to your ear and that we just bless somebody, that we just make somebody feel better. That was my honest to God prayer. And I would always tell the choir, you can't make a mistake. Anything that goes wrong is my fault, and we can always redeem ourselves. Thank the Lord, nothing ever really went wrong during a concert performance. But just anytime we had those moments of like feeling a true move, and it's a gospel group, so I can say of God. So anytime we had a true move of God, or just that Holy Ghost coming over you, like those are always my absolute favorite moments. And I think my most relieved moment was, I was actually afraid to do the gospel choir for a long time because I had moved 6-7 hours from my home. And my cousins had always been my musicians. They had always been my band members. They've always been anchors in every section. So I didn't have anybody to have my back. And Shay was the last person that I was waiting on. I was like, God, I need an alto, I need a tenor, I need a soprano that's not afraid to sing. And my friend Kordai told me, yes, he would have my back, he would be my anchor. My friend Lydia told me she would sing alto, she would have my anchor, she would do it. And then Shay finally came, and she was like, I don't know what that is, but I'll do it. and she sung in the gospel choir, and the last thing I needed was a piano player to accompany us. And my cousin Portia, she's now my cousin, I was like, do you think you could like play for us? And she was like, yeah, anytime. And she never missed one concert or one performance. She supported us completely. And them 3 singers plus Portia, who can sing anything, they gave me that support and foundation. So I just remember that day, and it was just miraculous. And then a resident on my hall, I was like, man, I need a drummer. And one of my residents was like, oh, I can be your drummer. I play at my church all the time. And I thought he was joking. I said, are you serious? He was like, no. He's like, yes, I'm serious. I can play. I play all the time at my church. And I said, you joking? He was like, no, I have a full drum set and all. I said, you're playing. He said, I can text my parents right now and tell them to bring my stuff up to Piedmont. They live in Macon. It's just like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. We were at lunch. By the time we got back to our dorm that was less than a mile away, his parents were there with his full drum set, and he was not playing me. And I was like, oh my God. Like, he was for real. So literally I just remember that whole day when everything just fell in place. It was like the singer said yes, Portia said yes. My drummer was living right next door to me, and I didn't even know it. And I think just that probably was my absolute favorite memory. That's when I just went, whew, okay, we're supposed to be doing this.
Mm-hmm. it's amazing when you're set to do good and you have such positive energy behind the things that you want to do, how everything just falls into place so perfectly. I really
Yeah.
love that. All right, well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, everyone. Thank you. United Gospel Choir. right, Justin. So you submitted a piece of art for us for this episode. What is this piece specifically, and why did you choose it?
So this piece is called Revelation, and it basically depicts a woman, outstretched arms with the Pan-African flag behind her, and in the background you see chains being broken, and it says Juneteenth on top. And that piece basically just kind of came to me, when I was asked to do this, and it was just the feeling of what kind of all of this kind of just summed up to me. Just the revelation of, because Juneteenth is, when the last group of slaves found out that they were free, it's just a revelation that there is more to life, that they're able to take their destiny into their own hands. The reason why I chose a Black woman is just the revelation that, Black women are the backbone of our culture, of our society. I grew up in a matriarchal family, and I'd be nothing without, my mother, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my sisters. The Pan-African flag represents, our connection back to our roots, and that our story did not start, in America, with slavery and bondage, that, our history is rich. So I chose these pieces just to kind of, put them all together, to kind of surmise my feelings about what it was. And it's just a revelation. Revelation just kind of seemed like the perfect word to depict that piece.
So you are an artist and you have an art company, right? What is the name of your company and how did it get started?
So it's a publishing company. It's called Mind Invader Comics, and I make comic books. It started back from like the 7th grade, because that's just all I really cared to do in class was just draw. My report card even says draws too much in class. And I met my my best friend Brendan Sellers, who is my business partner now. And we were the only 2 kids that actually, cared about comics and cared about art enough, and it started back then. And our dream was to always start a comic book company. We would make little 8x10 comic books, folded in half, like on printer paper. We would make them and pass them out in school. So, Mind Invader Comics started officially in 2017. And, I had just been tired of working for other people. I worked a myriad of jobs from, working in retail to selling ice cream to selling cutlery, to working in kitchens and all that kind of stuff. And it never resonated with me. Nothing ever truly felt like it was for me, and the only thing that I ever really had was just my art, and I was getting older and I'm just like, enough is enough. No one's going to hand this to me. No one's going to say, hey, Justin, we see you're working in this kitchen, screw that. Hey, here's a script, draw this. That was never going to happen. And something that my grandma Hayes had told me that has always resonated with me is, if you want to see it happen, you got to make it happen. And I've always wanted to make comic books, so therefore I made it happen. I made the right connections, got the proper paperwork behind me, and as it started to manifest, I started to meet writers, I started to meet other artists, I started to meet mentors, people to help me with business side of things, people to help me with the artistic side of things. All the pieces just kind of fell into place, once I set myself onto that path. So that's
right.
Yeah, so that's how Mind Invader Comics kind of got its start.
Awesome. What do your comics tend to be about? What is like the theme, or is it a specific arc that your comics tend to follow?
So there's several things, really. So basically, what my comics tend to be about, just kind of tend to be initially about like my life story. Coming out of high school, I've always had this, and just, coming out of high school, I've always found myself hanging out at the same coffee shop, the same group of friends, doing nothing but just hanging out, and we also smoked a lot of pot. So I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest. I mean, full disclosure, we were stoners, and we were stoners just hanging out, you know, just doing the same old, same old. And I would always drum up these fantastic situations. You know, it's like, oh, well, what if we ran out of weed? Okay, so what if we have to go get weed? And what if we have to go to Kennesaw Mountain to get our weed? But now, what if we find out that Sasquatch is the weed guy? You know, and now he's got like this magical bud that like brings us into all these kind of stories. So there's some of those stories. And then that's some of like my earlier work. And going after that, I kind of got into metaphysics, and I've always been a huge extraterrestrial fan. You know, I believe in aliens. I believe that there's intelligent life and all that kind of stuff. And you know, so kind of delving into that, I kind of started to wonder what my purpose was in life. And it kind of came to me in the form of a story, and the story is called Stargazer, and it's basically about a kid who finds out, you know, that he's meant to do more, and the power to do more rests within him, within his spiritual essence, and how he's connected spiritually to everybody on the planet. But the opposition are alien overlords that are trying to distract human beings from that revelation, you know, through, you know, real world materialism like phones, TV, all that kind of stuff, you know. So basically, he leads a crusade to liberate mankind's soul, you know, to liberate the spirit of mankind. And so that was, you know, so that's the Stargazer piece. And then after that, you know, I like history a lot. You know, that was the only subject I was really good at, you know. And so I figured out that, well, I realized that, you know, coming out of high school and into the real world, and, you know, realizing that, you know, I don't really know too much about my own personal history. You know, I don't know much about, you know, Africa, you know, outside of like Egypt and the Zulu nation, you know. So I figured that with the medium that I have, comic books, I would be able to tell the stories of unsung heroes like, you know, Duddy Bookman of the Haitian revolutions, you know, how, you know, Toussaint Louverture, and, you know, just a lot of people, you know, Mansa Musa, so on and so forth, you know, Yasuke, who was like the first and the only African samurai, you know, a lot of stories such as that, you know, and then even going into American history. So I figured, you know, again, if you want to see it happen, you got to make it happen. So it's like, you know, make these stories, you know, tell these stories in a fun, packaged kind of, you know, medium, which is comic books, you know.
Right.
So, you know, so to answer your question, my stories follow my life experiences, you know, because you can't copy that. You can't copy another person's life experience, and you can't, you know, and it's new, it's original, you know. As a comic book nerd, you know, and any other comic book nerd that reads this, you know, they or sees this interview, you know, they know that, you know, there's just a lot of regurgitation, and that's not just with comic books, that's with our movies. You know, everywhere there's a reboot here, or there's a reimagining there, or, you know, there's a 20-year sequel that, you know, finally getting a sequel after 20 years of the first movie, and it becomes exhausting and almost deprivating. You know, you're depriving people of the escape of imagination, you know. And I feel like in telling more original stories, more stories that are true to you, because personally, like, if I make a story, I don't care if anyone reads it, I'm reading it, you know. I'm making it for me. It's something that I would want to see. It's something that I would want to view. And if more people hop on the train and resonate with it, the better, you know. That's just a testament to the storytelling capacity. So yeah.
So out of all the pieces that you have created, what would you say is your favorite, or the one that you're most proud of?
So the one that I'm most proud of is actually a more recent piece, and it's called Cobzilla. right? And Cobbzilla is basically, for all that are familiar with Marietta, Georgia, and the Big Chicken, so to speak, that's like right there on 41. I turned the Big Chicken into a Godzilla character, you know? And I'm proud of that piece because in my opinion, every creative individual, they want people to be unified behind their work. They want people to resonate and to identify with what, with what the creator has created. So I feel like Cobbzilla does that because it transcends you and me. It's not about you and me. Cobbzilla it's a place. It's like like King Kong is synonymous with the Empire State Building, and so now whenever anyone goes to New York, they feel a piece of that. Like they feel like they're there. They're kind of transported to to that place and to that time. So I feel like that's what I achieved with Cobbzilla, is that people are able to resonate. It's like, oh, it's the Big Chicken. Oh wow, that's cool. Like that's the eye catching. But now, with that being said, I can now use that character, now that it has these people's attention. I can use that character to talk about anything. Cobbzilla fights inequality. Cobbzilla fights aliens. Cobbzilla fights unfair whatever the hell, that kind of deal. Just it's a malleable character that allows the storyteller to speak their piece, kind of like the original Godzilla. The original Godzilla was just a warning about the aftermath of nuclear fallout. So Cobbzilla can be that. Cobbzilla can fit that mold in whatever story device I see fit.
Well, Cobbzilla needs to come on down because Marietta, Georgia got a lot of inequality going on.
Yeah, right. Seriously, Cobbzilla needs to level the playing field indeed.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Justin.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, Akia, what are you performing for the Lockdown Showcase series, and why did you choose this piece?
So it's called 12 Children. It's from DESSA ROSE, which is an Ahrens and Flaherty musical, and I just love the show. Ahrens and Flaherty are really great about telling stories that you aren't used to hearing. They don't use an obvious formula, and they look at either things that have happened or other versions of stories that aren't been told. So DESSA ROSE, the musical, is based on a book, a novel, and you have these characters that you would not imagine ever meeting each other and end up becoming best friends by the end of the show, which is always fun. But I have another song from the show that I usually do in my auditions, and 12 Children is not an audition song because it's long and narrative, and they would be like, thank you after first couple measures. So I just wanted a chance to do something else from DESSA ROSE.
I love that. I absolutely love that. What would you say is like your favorite production experience, or like your favorite experience in theater?
I did Bat Boy when I was in school. It was a time it felt like every student group was doing Bat Boy every other year, but I was so I was in Children, which is a really weird scene, and I was a bear. And then for the scene right after that, I had to change and then jump back on stage and become a townsperson. And I had very little time, but I was a really unimportant character. So I didn't have anybody who was assigned to helping me change. And I remember, I don't think it was actually a performance. I think it was like just a heck. But I was off stage and I was trying to like pull off my ears and my snout and get my dress on, and I was panicking because I had slipped into my shoes and I didn't feel like I had room enough to actually buckle them and get on stage and not be like a really disheveled down person. And the costume designer happened to be back there holding a bunch of clothes waiting for somebody else to come off and do her job, and she buckled my shoes and I was on time and nobody knew that I was panicking. And
It's a miracle.
One of those random, oh, an act of kindness goes a really long way type moments that I always think about whenever I see anybody needs help. Like she saved my life that day. It was great.
That is amazing.
That's all you need for my love. Just buckle my shoes.
Just buckle your shoes. So what is a time that you felt empowered by a performance that you've given?
Well, I'm generally in the ensemble. I did a show with Atlanta Theater to Go a couple of years ago. They're a company that specifically tours to like retirement communities, places where people are not necessarily able to get out and go see theater. And it's just like a bunch of 10-minute plays. But I remember after the show, everybody was just so grateful that we had taken the time out of our lives to come and perform for them. And we had been really nervous about coming to this particular place because the people there were not the type of people who were actually capable of going out, and we didn't know how much like feedback we would receive. We didn't know if they would understand that there were jokes being told. And we got like people would laugh and people would smile and people would look up from their lunch because it was the middle of the day when we performed and be engaged in what we were doing. That was really nice, performing for people who didn't get to see a lot of theater.
Yeah, that's important too. Accessibility in theater. Not a lot of people think about that. Who can actually is able to physically go and see theater. So that's very important.
Mm-hmm. And it was so like we actually obviously had to like travel, did a lot of different places. So the set was really minimal, and we didn't have like elaborate costumes or musical numbers. It was like a really, really basic set of circumstances that we had for these people, and they still looked at it like they were, at the Fox.
That's really cool. Thank you so much, Akia.
I'm gonna teach you the names of your kin, just like my mammy taught me. Now my mammy, she is your grandmammy, and her name is Rose. Rose, flower so red, it almost looked black. They named her that when she was a girl. Smooth and black like petals of rose. And they teased her 'cause she worked around the dairy. Said her kiss was as tangy as flour. These things only her children know. Mammy gave birth to 12 children. 12 that come into this world still living. The first one, a boy named Little Joe, named for the master. Second one died without no name. White folks said it was all the same, but Mammy called her Minta for remembrance. Sent her first child who lived to work the fields. Mary, then Jess, then Bess, and live in never will know. But Gina, give her hope. Caesar died at the end of the road. She lost little Jeffrey to the sting of a bee. They souls carry May, her last was me. I'm the only baby whose name she chose. Dessa, for descendants of a woman named Rose. Little Joe, Joseph, Amos, Mary, Jeff's best cheer. Caesar, Jeffrey, Carrie, May, and Dessa Rose. Our names is Joe, Minta, Seth, Amos, Mary, Jeff's best cheer. Caesar, Jeffrey, Carrie, May, and Dessa Rose. My own self. That makes one. Some sold away, some passed away, some run. 12 children brought from my body, all gone but one. I tell these names the way my mammy told these names. Bless her poor children, bless her living memory. And you, little girl, you follow in line. Your Mary holds you safe as she can. One fine day we'll count you the same. Daughter, my daughter, you'll have your name.
So Marcus, you are a cultural theater advocate. Could you give us an explanation of what that means exactly?
Honestly, it really means putting more Black and people of color in our eyes, putting more Black and people of color in leadership positions. You know, we get on stage, great, you know, we sing, we dance, we act. But what me and my peers, what we aim to have is to get more leadership, Black and people of color in leadership positions in theater. I think if you get to the head, it's going to have a trickle down effect all the way to the feet. So you get people in leadership who are Black and representative of the communities that they are presenting to or that they reside in, then the trickle down effect, you're going to have more Black directors, you're going to have more Black designers. So yeah, that is a big part of what I push for and what we push for. Also, it means creating a safe space for Black people and people of color to work in these theater environments. I know, like, we're all artists, so a lot of times the work climate can be very relaxed, but that relaxed environment can sometimes be hostile, and because it's so relaxed, that hostility can be unchecked, or and unchecked at the least. Sometimes it's supported. So yeah, we want Black and people of color leadership. I personally want that. And also safe spaces. And I get it, it's a job, you don't go to work to be coddled or anything like that, but you also don't go to work to be harassed in any way, shape, or form. And you should feel safe to be at work, whether that work is, as a designer, as a stage manager, or even as an actor. Whatever position that is, you should feel safe in that environment, safe to express and just say. Sometimes we don't even feel safe enough to show up. You should feel safe in that environment. I don't know. Is
Right.
that? Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you. So I know that you're a member of BLACT, BLACT. Could you tell us what that stands for and how people can become a member?
Absolutely. I actually founded it with a couple of my buddies. It stands for Black Leaders Advocating for Cultural Theater. So, pretty straightforward with the name. And to become a member, honestly, you have to be a Black person and you have to care about this theater community. And if that's the case, then you're really just a Facebook invite away. There's no dues or anything like that. It's literally a space for Black creatives in this community to express themselves, and also to let us know what's going on. Because, a lot of times all of the founders are parents. We're all parents and we're all busy. So we might not always know what's happening. So it's good for people in the group to bring to us or to bring to other artists what's going on in the theater community. And some of the stuff is wild, some of the stuff is wild. And a lot of the stuff has become public. I know many of you have seen a lot of the Facebook posts recently. People have become a lot more bold and speaking up for themselves, which is a good thing, that's not a bad thing. We should speak out for ourselves, even if it's after the fact. We should still do that. Yeah, like that. You should be able to do that. And so BLACT provides a space. Now, we go beyond just being a safe space for Black artists. We also do service projects. I head up most of the service projects for BLACT, and this has included, we've packed over 120 blessing bags for the homeless in Atlanta. We partnered with the YMCA on Campbellton Road and did a book bag drive with them. That partnership also extended to UGA, True Colors Theater, and Peachtree Presbyterian Church in Buckhead. So we spread ourselves out. We also, during the pandemic, we also packed lunches for 5 departments at the WellStar facility on Boulevard, at that hospital, so for their workers. So yeah, we do a lot of things. We put on dance classes. We've also did a cabaret for Black artists to, perform their works if they've written things, or if it's just something they wanted to sing. We also did that. Now, it wasn't just an off-the-cuff cabaret. Everybody got paid, so it was a legit thing. Yeah, we've done quite a bit. We've been in existence for about a year now, and so in that year, we've been working hard to establish ourselves in this community and serve this community.
Awesome. What would you say is an effort that BLACT has made that has, I guess, made you the most proud?
Oh man, because it's all so different. I'm honestly proud of all of it. Like, giving book bags to children who don't have book bags, and supplies to children who don't have supplies. Sometimes that's hard for many of us to fathom, but I grew up in that YMCA. So I understand that. And, that means a lot for that child to have those things, to, not be the one who doesn't have simple things like pencils and paper, stuff like that. And a lot of those schools in that area are underserved, and the teachers can't supply them with everything, so that's a good feeling. Putting on a successful cabaret, we sold both shows out. I'm not known as a producer. I've mostly been in the service part of nonprofits. So I worked with the National Black Arts Festival for a very long time. And even then, most of it was service oriented, what I did. So, I'm not known as a producer. So to put something on like that for our members to express themselves and to sell out 2 shows, that was a beautiful thing. To provide a dance class with with a professional level choreographer who works in the city, who choreographs and dances in the city, and to be able to give, you know, our members that for $5. That's a big, you know, all of it's such a big deal for me. We have, you know, we organized a march and we had 2,000 artists out there, you know, hearing what we had to say. All of it's such a big deal. It's such a great, solid team, and everybody's trying to do good work, you know, so it's really hard to pick out one thing that really stands above the rest. I'm pretty proud of it, proud of it all. And most of it, most of it is self-funded, you know, so we don't have grants, you know, we don't have investors, you know, we're kind of putting the burden on our backs and carrying this thing and making sure that it's tight, consistent, and good work.
Right. I was actually at the Atlanta Solidarity March.
Oh, turn up.
What was it? Was it last Saturday or the
Sunday? Yeah.
So last Sunday, yeah. I've enjoyed that very much. It was the first protest I was able to go to, because I have to go to my regular 9 to 5. But
hey, look, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
But I was glad to be a part of that and see the things that, you know, Black has been able to coordinate for us since all this has started happening.
Yeah, 100%. And I'll say about the march, you know, we wanted to make sure, you know, there's a lot going on in Atlanta. Like, let's be real. And I've been at the protest at night where, you know, they're throwing tear gas and stuff like that. You don't, you know, we didn't want that for our artists. So we put it in the afternoon. Me and my co-founder, Tina Fears, we actually walked the route a couple of days before. We spoke to the city representative who was over that zone. We spoke to the police. We spoke to the National Guard. We spoke to the local businesses around the area just to make sure that everybody felt comfortable and safe, you know, at that march, because we wanted people to be out there and we wanted them to be able to express themselves without any kind of craziness going on. So I appreciate you being out there.
Of course. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Marcus.
Yeah, 100%.
Thank you all for joining me. Today is a special episode because we're celebrating Juneteenth. And for those of you who do not know, Juneteenth is the acknowledgement of the final news finally reaching Texas, that the slaves are free, not to be confused with the actual day of emancipation, which was 2 years earlier. Did you all hear about Juneteenth in school? I didn't. I was never taught about Juneteenth in school. How about you all?
No.
I think I was in high school when I learned about it, but I didn't learn about it from school. I learned about it from I saw a play that talked about it but didn't refer to it as Juneteenth. There was a little bit where someone found out he was free and somebody said, "What are you talking about? We've been free for 2 years." And then
I first found out about Juneteenth by actually walking into a Juneteenth festival in my adolescence. I lived on in Marietta Square, actually. Marietta Square was a Juneteenth festival. And I lived on Lemon Street, which was the historic Black projects. And they were always very good about, you know, bringing us out to places like Selma, Alabama, and so on and so forth, and kind of teaching us our history. So when I, you know, got to this Juneteenth festival, I didn't know what the hell was going on. You know, I didn't know what that was going. You know, I didn't know what the occasion was until, you know, one of the administrators had taught me exactly what was happening.
Yeah, in my opinion, I feel like just in general, I haven't really gotten much African American history in just at all in school. It's really talk about our side of it.
Yeah.
And so, like what I know is kind of like what I know from my friends, like what my family tells me, just experience. So I don't know. I don't know if y'all relate to that, but that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel most of our history is still passed down orally. We're not learning it in our educational circles, which I feel is a problem.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, unfortunately, it is 2020, and we are still, having to deal with an incredible amount of injustice. Our Black brothers and sisters being unjustly murdered, segregation and discrimination in the workplace. And I was just curious if any of you had any personal stories that you're comfortable enough sharing about experiences that you've had in your own place of business, in your own art form, or anything like that.
Oh, well, I'll start this off. Actually, working at the Alliance last year, I had to defend, this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous. I had to defend my own hair against another actor, which is
Wow.
Right. I know, right? That's wild, isn't it? Yeah, I actually, my hair was questioned. The way my hair was questioned, even though, you go through the designers and all of that. And I had to, it was so bad that I had to escalate it. It wasn't just like and any of these small things we shouldn't let pass, but it wasn't to the point where, hey, that I can just tell you you're wrong. No, it was and it happened in front of other actors. It actually happened during a show. It was intermission. We were waiting to go back on stage. We were backstage. We were waiting to go back on stage. And the actor was like, why does your hair look like that? That isn't period. Why don't you put it in a jerry curl or something? Right?
Sure.
I know, right?
Wow.
So, the first thing to know about the show is that, if the show is period, then there aren't going to be any Black people on stage anyway. So let's deal with that. The fact that we're even out here is
Right.
kind of an extension of the imagination. And then there's also magical creatures out and about. So there's that. But yeah, and so and this really isn't the responsibility of the actors. It is stage management and company management is their job to deal with this. But I took it upon myself to educate the actor on Black hair and how dangerous jerry curls are to Black hair. And and of course I escalated to stage management as well. But I mean, there's if you've been in the industry for any amount of time, I'm sure you have your stories. So there's one.
Yeah, I had an experience with Aurora Theater in Atlanta. My time as an apprentice, and actually I got a long text message from someone yesterday in regards to what happened. But like on multiple occasions, I don't know if you are aware of like an apprenticeship, but a lot of times they don't pay too well, but the experience and the training is really good.
God bless you.
In a way, you have to kind of take some like BS to kind of be a part of it, but there's a fine line between like being treated like you gotta like prove yourself and being disrespected. And so like on multiple occasions I was disrespected, and I like the first time was I was the understudy for a one-woman show, and as an apprentice we had apprentice duties, so I would miss probably about 30% of the rehearsals due to my classes that I had to go to. And so the day before closing night, the girl who was in the show, her dad passed away and she didn't want to go on. But the director felt so inclined to speak directly to the artistic director about me, how I never was in rehearsal. When I was in rehearsal, I didn't pay attention, and that she doesn't feel comfortable letting me go on. But I was off book. I was ready. I was scared because I'd never done something like that, but I was definitely ready to take it on. And I felt, and instead of talking to me about it, they forced her to go on anyway, and so she couldn't see her dad. And so that girl ended up not liking me. So I just created this trickle now where people are starting to question my work ethic without even like me work. And auditions for Cinderella remix happen, and it's an all-Black Cinderella. And they cast a white girl in our role for Cinderella, and I just so happened to be the understudy. And they cast all the other apprentices who were Black in the other roles, so I was like very happy for them. But the only thing that took me aback was Chloe being Cinderella, and no one said anything, y'all. No one. And everyone was afraid to say something, and that's the part that got me. And I was like, I really don't want to be the one to say this because I'm the understudy, and I don't want them to think that I'm saying this because I want the part. Yeah, I wanted the part, but that's not why I'm saying it. And so we had a meeting where they brought all the apprentices together, and they were like, anybody have anything they want to say? And I'm like, nobody's really gonna say it. And it's because nobody wanted to shake the table. Nobody wanted to upset them by saying what I was about to say, because they were already casting the show. They didn't want to get penalized for saying something. And so, pause really quick. On our advertisement for Cinderella Remix, it was like a young Black girl, like headphones on a scratch table because she was a hip hop DJ. And I was handing out stickers for front of house for a children's show. And no lie, this little girl was like, "Mommy, look, she looks like me. I can't wait to see the show." Like, just telling her mom, like, I want to see it. And then I find out, and I don't mean this like in a sassy way, but like then I find out Chloe signed the contract. She signed the contract, and I was like, and I felt so bad because I didn't want her to feel like I wasn't proud of her. But at the same time, I was like, you had no my opinion, she had no business signing that contract in the first place if she had any type of integrity for us. But to her, it was just a job. But to us, it's not always just a job.
Right.
And I think it was hard, like, she didn't realize that. But I ended up telling them, I was like, I think it's wrong that y'all said this. I even reread their mission statement to them, how you talk about you pride yourself in diversity, and I told them, now what you've done with this show is you're about to start teaching children without realizing it. You just turn the story of Cinderella into now a group of Black people tormenting a white girl. That's the narrative you're now like putting out there. And this is the children's show. So even though you're not saying that, you're seeing this consciously, and they're seeing the shit. And I'm like, this is not fucking cool. So I said that, and then instead of like bumping up, his director got sassy and then like cast someone else. But God is good, because she cast someone who I knew and was very deserving of that role. And in fact, it was her first lead in Atlanta. So it was like actually it was like a big blessing for her. And the fact that I knew who she was kind of was a sign of like God telling me it was the right thing to do. And so literally a week after that, I got offered a full ride to Oklahoma State University.
Yes.
And so I was like, I ain't finishing my apprenticeship. I can't be here. Because then after I spoke out, I was in the Christmas canteen, and I was constantly being disrespected for her, like on a consistent basis. And so I was like, yeah, that's cool. Like, you guys, like, sometimes they think they're doing us a favor because, like, you're part of a show. It's like, no, you deserve so much more, and you don't have to, like, settle. And you deserve just as much respect as everyone else in that room.
That's right.
And don't be afraid to say something, because guess what? They came back and they got mad at me. They were like, you can't consider yourself an apprentice. You did not finish the program. But then last week they asked me to do an online reading series, and they advertised me as an APCO alum. So guess what? I'm gonna start doing. And I'm gonna start speaking I have already spoken my truth. I never held my tongue, but I'm gonna still say what I gotta say. But I'm like, you can't say I ain't finished the program, because now you used my Blackness to make your theater look diverse. Like, I know what they were doing, but I'm gonna show you though.
Wait, I got a couple of clarifying questions, because I this is all news to me. So you said so they put you on a poster saying, using you as an APCO alum, right?
Yeah, like they asked me to read, and I did do it, but I did it to prove a point. I only did it. I didn't do it to be like, okay.
Wow, that's wild.
It is wild.
What year was the Cinderella thing?
I was APCO 17, so 2017.
Okay.
Or
and you said they cast a white girl?
Was February, the performance was February 2018 though. But yeah. They casted it in like October of 17.
They cast a white girl in Cinderella remix as Cinderella?
Yes. I was the original understudy.
Wow.
That's wild.
I have the contract and everything in the original cast list.
So
And
instead of
then
allowing
you said what?
So instead of allowing you to play the role that you should have been moved up to as the understudy, she kept you as the understudy and brought on somebody else.
Yeah, and not only did she do that, she took away performances. Because originally I was gonna do the extended run, which was like 2 weeks. And so she rewrote the contract so that the new girl did the whole run and I was just the understudy. So I was no longer guaranteed performance. And the education director, Jacqueline, she's the one who sent me this long apology she's the one who told me like that she really it was intentional. Like this was retaliation on the artistic director's behalf, like the the founders of this theater. And that broke my heart.
So, hey, you said you have that original cast list. Did that white girl ever go on?
I'm pretty sure I do.
Did the white girl ever go on?
No. Okay, so this is what happened. So after I spoke out in that meeting, the artistic director was like, well, what do you want us to do? Change the advertisement? Yeah, change that shit. And then I told him the story about how I literally just gave that girl a sticker. I'm like, if you have any fucking ounce of integrity or decency, you're going to do it for that little girl that I gave that sticker to. For her, I don't give a fuck if she doesn't go to the show. Like, this is why we do it. Like this. Like how I would have loved to see somebody look like me on stage. I wouldn't have waited till college to do it. It's just like, no, it's not right. And so I told them, you either need to change that advertisement or you need to recast it. And I said it in front of her and she got a little mad at me, but I was like, I don't give a fuck now. Like, I don't care because that's what you need to do.
Can you send me that? Can you send me that cast list?
Yeah, I'll get your number from Callie or something.
Yeah.
Or your email.
I appreciate it.
Is there anything else anyone else would like to share?
I will. Gospel music is kind of my background. Been doing it for a long time, to the point where I'm the minister of music at my father's church, and I'm an adjunct professor of music. I teach gospel music studies at Brennan University. When I was a senior, working on my undergrad, I vocal performance major, and I ended up switching professors between my sophomore and junior year at the college. And I'm sorry, this is Piedmont College, by the way. I don't know if I need to name drop, but I'm just going to be honest. And I, with my new vocal professor, it seemed like she tried to make I guess you can say, pull me off my high horse, but I wasn't on any high horse. I literally just, walked in the position that I already had. I was the chamber singer president, which is one of the elite groups at the college. And I had worked my butt off to be the musician that I already was before she got there. And literally, when she got there, she literally wanted to tear me down first and then build me up in a way that modeled her teaching. But I have never been a butt kisser. I never will be. And because I was very vocal on the things that I wanted, the things I wanted to accomplish, she really made a point to make me earning that degree just really hard. Of all of my senior classmates, that the year we graduated in 2010, it was 4 ladies. I went last, and any of them will tell you that I had the hardest song sets. She refused to let me do spirituals because I guess you could say, I did gospel music, so I did spirituals all the time. Those are her words, and I quote. And I had 17 songs in my senior recital. I sang Italian, French, German, let's see, Italian, French, German, Latin. Yes. And she literally gave me my last set of music a month before my my hearing to do my senior recital. And so I was literally in the middle of learning all of those pieces, as well as my accompanist, who was just like, oh my God, why do you have so many tough songs? He told me that my song sets were tough, just as an accompanist and working with me. When I got in to do my hearing, you know, all the professors get to choose the songs that they want to hear. And she literally chose the last song of that Italian set, which I had just learned the tune to maybe a week and a half prior. And I bombed it. I literally bombed it. I knew the tune like the back of my hand, but the words, did not know them. Couldn't portray. I portrayed the character, but I don't know what words I said. They definitely weren't Italian. And because of that, I failed my hearing. And luckily, the department chair allowed me to do a redo a month later, to, you know, to have everything done, because my accompanist, he literally spoke to him privately and told him that he knew that I had been working. He knew that I wasn't slacking off. I was rehearsing with my accompanist twice a week. He was also a professor at the college. So he knew that on top of my entire senior work set that I was doing with all my classes, that I was doing what I needed to do. But she was determined to break me. And at the end of the day, I'm not cocky. I never have been cocky. I'm a very humble person. But I really feel like she was intimidated by me, because I was able to do gospel and then come in and do classical, and I wasn't hoarse, or I wasn't affected. Like, my singing styles enhanced the other. I was still able to be just as classical as I was to be just as, you know, spiritually emotional when I sang a gospel piece. And I think I was breaking down her barriers of what she thought a classical singer should be. And so, you know, like I said, I got a D in voice my junior year. I had only gotten A's prior. I got a C in voice my senior year, which I still don't understand. And I literally fought for that degree. And I still use, you know, all my skill sets. And I don't know, like that always sat with me. Like, why did she, I don't want to say hate, but why did she hate my talent that bad that she couldn't embrace it and enhance it with the skill set she had? She just wanted me to be a clone, and I couldn't. I couldn't be a cookie cutter clone. I didn't get to do spirituals on my recital, but it was fine because I proved a point that I could do an entire classical set. But I ain't gonna lie, it hurt. It did hurt, and I had other professors come back to me and apologize pretty much for my senior year, because it was really just a whole plethora of things. That was just one of the bigger things of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I have, like, super briefly, I'm just gonna start by saying this lady is a bitch, and I don't know where she come from, but she literally is like a demon from hell. I'll say Well, Portia didn't name her, and I won't either, but I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same person.
I'm pretty sure.
She came for me a few times. One of the first times she's come for me, I took a vocal pedagogy class with her. Until this day, I'll never let it go. I'm an overachiever in everything I do, especially in the classroom, and I'll never understand how I got a B in her class. On the first day, she said, "This will probably be your first B, and it's okay. I got a B as well when I took this class the first time." So I made it my business to read all of the books for the class before it even started. I made it my business to study and allow my friends, including Cheyanne here, to test me on every single piece of material on a test that would come up in her class. I remember the first test we got, I made an 88 on the test. She took off 4 points on the test off of one question that I answered, but I wrote the answer that she told me was the answer. And I took the test and I said, "Hey, doctor, this is the answer you told me to put for this question." And her response was, "Oh, I'm sorry, I must have made a mistake. I don't know what I'm talking about." And I was like, "Well, are you gonna give me my 4 points? Because my grade should be a 92. And she was like, "No, it's not that big of a deal. It's really close. It's just an 88. You still did well." I'm like, "Okay." In my mind, my goal is to make an A. An 88 is not okay. So fast forward, we had another test. I got one question wrong on this test, and it took my grade down to an 80. She took 10 points off of my test. I was like, wow, this test has like 30, 40 questions on it. And we had to label human body parts. I was like, how can this one question be worth 10 points? I looked at two of my friends' tests. They got the same question wrong as me. She took 4 points off of their test, and she took 10 off of mine. The only difference was our skin color. I'm not saying she's racist. I'm not saying she doesn't like Black people, but I definitely felt targeted by her over and over again. I had 4 big exams in her class, and I got 3 B's and a C on one of them. Every single paper I wrote in her class, I got an A or an A+. My final exam, I got a 95 and a 95. I did the math with the lowest A possible. The lowest grade I could have gotten in that class was a 93. I'm still confused to this day how I ended up with the B in that class. I think she just was set on making sure she, again, daggered my confidence and brought me down. Additionally, now remember earlier I talked to you about the gospel choir. She didn't like that. Portia just hit on it. She tried to get the gospel choir canceled many times because she just doesn't support that style of singing. But before I ever even went to my dean of fine arts to even get it rolling, we literally discussed every single pitch that he wanted a soprano to switch on, an alto to switch on, a tenor to switch on, to switch registration so that they weren't belting past a certain point, just for vocal safety. I followed every single rule he had, and she did everything she could to get this group canceled. I remember I walked into a choir rehearsal one day, and my director said, "Nick, we got to talk." And I was like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "I think that we're going to have to put a pause to the gospel choir." And I said, "Why? I followed every single rule you had set." And he was like, "Well, students are coming into their voice lessons hoarse and they can't sing and they're not prepared." I said, "Well, I don't think that's true." I was like, "How?" I was like, "How could my gospel choir that meets one day a week for 1 hour cause a student to not be prepared for a class that they had all week long to prepare for?" And I was like, "I teach them to sing half voice for the entire rehearsals, and I always let them know when the last time is going to come." I was like, nobody has a reason to not be prepared, and nobody has a reason to be hoarse. We had a concert, but nobody was hoarse the next day. I talked to every single member. That evening, we went to dinner. We hung out. I saw them the next day. I was like, nobody was hoarse. I'm confused. What happened is one student neglected her vocal studies, as she always does. I know who she is. She always does it. And she said that, she's just been focusing on the gospel choir. She used us as a way out, thinking that this professor would be understanding, not knowing that this professor actually hates gospel music, hates anything that's not classical. And she really hated me because the dean took my side and said, "Well, he does follow every single rule I said before, and he hasn't broken any rules." So
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to cancel his program. So the gospel choir never got canceled and never got removed. And she was so mad. And she came for me again because she actually wanted to be my voice teacher. And I didn't want her to be my voice teacher. And I think she was just trying to get her hands on me. I know for a fact she was going to try to do to me what she did to Portia, which was tear me down and rebuild me in the image of her liking. But she is not my God, so that would have never happened.
Come on.
You know, so what happened in that situation was she kept bothering. She kept saying, well, you're going to start graduate school and I'm the only graduate professor. I was like, well, in that case, I don't think I'll be taking voice. I'll be doing conducting. I was like, because my preferred choice is the male vocal teacher, tenor to tenor. I like to learn from a tenor. And she was like, well, he doesn't have his doctorate degree, so therefore you have to study with me. He can only teach on the undergraduate level. And I said, Lord, I called him. I said, when will you graduate with your doctorate degree? I need to know so I can know when to register for voice. Again, she strong-armed her way. She made me sign. She got the dean to sign me up for her class. And I said, pause. I'm not taking voice. I've changed my mind. I'll wait. I waited until he graduated. He graduated college, got his doctorate degree, was now eligible to teach graduate voice. And then I re-signed up for graduate voice lessons, and I dropped conducting, and I was with the person I wanted to be with, and boy, was she pissed off. But she had already pissed me off, so I had to get her back. But she literally, she targeted me so many times, and that's just scratching the surface. And she did it to Portia. She did it to my best friend, Lydia. She targeted that girl so much. She ended up with the B. And she's one of the best coloratura sopranos I know.
Jesus.
She's targeted all of us, and we all look the same. The one she targeted, we all look the same. That's all I'm gonna say. I was told that she was married to a black man back in the day. I guess he pissed her off and broke her heart, and she's taking it out on everybody else. I don't know, but now she's with an old lady now. But
chill out.
Okay.
Oh no, not
Okay.
Mr. Peter.
Spilling all the tea.
Okay, I'm gonna pause there. But
Y'all, and just so you know, you can easily find out who this teacher is because she used to be my voice teacher.
Okay.
So
I didn't say anything. So she said, okay.
That's all I'll say. That's all I say.
since a lot of people have been, thankfully speaking up about the experiences that they've been having at theaters and in musical programs and theater programs in schools, you've been getting all of these statements that, theaters have been releasing. Serenbe deleted their whole damn employee list by now. And I was just curious about what your thoughts were, because words are words, and they say we see you and we stand with you and all that stuff. We hear it every time. And I'm very interested to hear from you all what you think theaters can actually do and what these musical programs can actually do to enforce change within their programs, especially because I've been hearing a lot when people have been speaking about fear and being afraid to speak out. There's this looming thing over the arts and jobs in general that Black people tend to have, but specifically in this case, in the arts, where you feel like if you speak out or you say something that makes you feel uncomfortable, you feel like you've been discriminated against, you feel like somebody in a higher position is racist, you feel like if you say something, you're not going to be able to work in Atlanta again. The director's going to remember that. They're going to see you in a bad light. And how can we fix this system to not only include more Black people in the process, but to also erase this fear of when something does happen, we feel like we can't say anything about it?
I feel like, and me speaking from an outside perspective, I feel like unionization, especially, people of color unionizing together, forming that solidarity, and coming with an agenda, coming with, arms, and with the legislature, for lack of a better word. I feel like in these groups coming together in this particular field and, having, a rapport with, these theater companies, I feel like that would be a step, because like with you know, with like movie industry and stuff, you know, there are unions, and you know, that have gone through situations where, you know, they're not getting their needs met, or they're not, you know, taken care of, you know, in ways that they needed to be. And I feel like if we have, you know, unions where it's like people of color to show that solidarity and to show that strength in numbers, I feel like that is a force to be reckoned with, personally.
I also think it's important to take a really good look at the people of color that they do have, or the Black voices that they do choose to amplify, because a lot of times people will have, you know, one or two examples that they throw out every opportunity that they get. We had this, you know, all Black cast of this show, or we have this one person that we keep hiring to do a designer, you know, some one particular corner that we're allowing this person to exist in. So really hold them accountable for being able to see Black people across the board, and not just having their one or two favorites in their talented 10 that they allow to be in their shows every now and then, or on their boards every now and then. I think would make it easier to believe that they mean what they say when they say those things.
Yeah, going back to your very first question, do I think them making statements is enough? I don't think theater companies or celebrities or anybody like just making little statements of "we support you, we see you, we hear you." I don't necessarily think it's enough, but unpopular opinion, I am very grateful that they're at least doing it. But I do not think it's enough. But again, I am at least grateful that they're doing, because if they weren't doing it, I do believe we would probably have some work to say about that too. So I at least appreciate that they're taking a step in their own way towards what we want and what we need. And additionally, I just think we would feel better represented, or more represented, or equally as important if theater companies were to give us the same amount of opportunities that they offer other actors and actresses. I remember auditioning for roles and literally being told, "Oh my goodness, your cable audition for this show was so great, but you're not white. Like you the role is for a white man and you're not white, Nick. So I'm sorry, I can't cast you. Gotta cast this guy." And I'm like, you should have just not told me anything, because I didn't know that's why I didn't get casted. I thought I didn't get casted because the other dude did better. Now you're letting me know that you wanted me to be casted, but because I wasn't white, I couldn't be casted in the role. And what would have made me feel better is if they would have did a show that was predominantly Black people, or if they would have did a show that it didn't matter what color you were, so I could at least felt like I got that opportunity back. So again, them making those statements that everybody's making, no, it's not enough. But I am grateful that they are, and they can definitely represent us better by doing shows that give us the same amount of opportunities, just equal opportunity. I think that's all we really want. Is equality. That's it.
I personally feel like, oh, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting?
No, I was just agreeing. I was like, yeah, I agree with that.
I personally feel like with theaters, kind of going to what Akia was saying, there needs to be a myriad of stories being told in these theaters. You know, the theater that I work in, you know, they're inclusive, and you know, I see, you know, a few production companies, Black production companies, are coming with their stories, but I personally feel like to have something of merit, you know, something, you know, because there's those, you know, you got your Tyler Perry shows, you know, you got your like your dramas and stuff like that. But there's the theater on the square, and you know, and it's a Black-owned theater. Mm-hmm. And you know, one show that I saw that was extremely powerful to me. It was called The Meeting, and it was a hypothetical meeting of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. You know, what if they met, and what would that meeting of ideologies look like? And to me, it was just so beautifully crafted, and it left a huge impression you know, on me as a Black person, you know, and I feel like these other theaters, you know, because their fan base, you know, are predominantly, you know, older white people. So then, you know, when you're looking at it from a business standpoint, it's like, you know, what's the appeal? And then is that appeal going to generate the kind of revenue that we want? I feel like, you know, when it comes to morals, you know, money should not stand in the way of that. You know, it's better to stand out and saying that, you know what, we stood for something. We showed the story. We used our platform to bring power to this message or this voice. And you know what, maybe it didn't do so well, but the people that were there are not going to forget that experience, because that's what we go to theater for. We go to theater to be transported. We go to theater to see a different view. We go to theater to, you know, to feel a myriad of things. And, you know, that scope cannot be dictated by who you think is going to see this play or how much money is this going to make. You know, it's art. It's art. You know, you don't make art to make money. You make art to express yourself. So that's just one of
the other thing about always being so concerned about these predominantly white audiences is that theaters need to do a better job of fixing that problem. Why in Atlanta is almost theater's audience predominantly white? Why is it that they're not telling stories that appeal to more people? Why is it that they're not advertising to more people? Why is it that they're reaching out more directly to more people? This idea that they're to one particular group of people in the shows that they present should represent the area that they live in, and not just the people who are always coming to their shows and who are not maybe open to seeing something that doesn't represent them.
Agreed. Because, you know, you know, in opening up that and casting that wider net, you know, you're just gonna, you know, you're gonna bring in somebody that has never been to the theater before. You know, you're gonna create a whole new experience, a whole new just palette, you know, a whole new palette for somebody that has never given it, you know, a thought, and have been apprehensive just by what their general view of what the audience is gonna look like. You know?
I mean, to piggyback off what Nick said, but a little less bougie. I really feel like the statements are cute, and that's it. They're cute on a surface level, but like everyone has chimed in, until there is more representation of all the people that make up the theater.
Yeah.
How can they expect something that they want to really suppress so badly? How do you open it up to the masses? Representation. And until those things start to happen, like, it's cute. And that's in any profession. Until the representation and how you depict the other people that make your brand what your brand is, in a positive light, because sometimes, you know, we're portrayed, but not necessarily in the best light. Those things will. It's just word service to me. I need action.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen.
Well, I know it gets, and I know that you guys probably can understand this very well, how exhausting that it can be to get online all the time and see all the things that are happening in the news, arguing with people and trying to, for some reason, convince people that Black Lives Matter. But what is something that motivates you when things get hard, or you're feeling down, or you feel like you don't really have the strength? What motivates you to keep going?
For me, and this has been a huge surprise and a pleasant one, especially in this particular situation. And maybe because, you know, the world went to shit and ain't nobody got no jobs right now and everybody at home and shit. But to see the uprise and the increase in non-people of color coming to bat, you know, in these posts, you know, people, you know, handling, you know, the naysayers in their own social groups. Like, I mean, I've seen like a lot of, what's the word? Infighting, but I don't want to say infighting because it's not infighting, but just like a lot of strong debates on people of the same social group about, you know, the two sides of the spectrum, you know, because I mean, me personally, you know, back when with Ferguson, with Mike Brown, you know, and we started taking shit down with the Confederate monuments, and you know, it was so exhausting because like I felt like I was the only one saying something, you know, I felt like I was the only person saying, yo, this shit's fucked up, and if you're not seeing how fucked up this shit is, then I think you're pretty fucked up too. And you know, so now it just seems like a wide spectrum of non-POCs, you know, coming to bat, coming to aid, you know, being true allies, and at least vocally, and not just vocally, but also in the marches. You know, I did a march 2 weeks ago, you know, on the Meredith Square, and you know, just to see the number of like non-people of color, it overshadowed the people of color, you know, that were out there, you know, advocating, you know, seeing, you know, the older white people in their cars honking for us, raising their fists up, you know, people coming out, you know, who I'm expecting to be an antagonizer because, you know, I'm in Marietta, you know, but they're coming out in solidarity. And, you know, and it's funny because, you know, my grandfather, he grew up in Harlem, and he's telling me, and so he remembers, you know, Dr. King and Malcolm X, and he remembers when all, you know, the civil rights movement, when it was, you know, full swing. And he says, and he says himself, he has never seen this many non-people of color, you know, come out and show support and to, you know, help us in tackling these issues and help and them having these conversations with their constituents. And, you know, and to me, that gives me hope. That gives me hope that, you know, once you put down the distractions, once people step outside their little protective bubbles, that, you know what, shit is fucked up. You know, shit is fucked up, and it's not right. And it has shown me the consciousness that people have towards the injustices that we are facing today. So, you know, to see that growth, to see that awakening, so to speak, in people, that gives me hope. That makes me feel, you know, like, you know, we're getting there. We're getting there. Mm-hmm. You know, even though it's been 400 fucking years, but we getting there. Yeah.
So I want to apologize. I had to go quiet for a little while. So I just got home, so that's great. But I just want to take a step back to the last question. I couldn't answer that at the time, but so the last question, and everybody really hit on some things, but it's a very multifaceted question. So I know the unionization was mentioned. So, you know, I don't know how many of you all know this, but because of everything that's going down, the equity rep for Atlanta has stepped down. I don't know if you all knew that, but the union rep, the theater union rep for Atlanta has stepped down because she understood, as an aged white woman, this wasn't like she can no longer deliver what needs to be delivered. So I don't know how many people on the phone are equity, but, you know, and equity votes are coming up to vote, you know, people into office. I don't know how many of you all are equity. That's something to consider. But yes, unionization is a very big thing. And if you are part of the union, you know, you need to take up, because in Utah, I did a show in Utah, and we had some issues with race, not at the theater, but with the community. And we were able to not only go to the police, but go to our union rep and, you know, get the leader of this theater to talk to the community. So if y'all are equity, if y'all are the union, that is a big thing. Another thing is a lot of people saying about the statements. The theater statements are not enough. I mean, for some, yeah, it's nice that they're recognizing that, but theaters need to come out. They need to make these changes. The changes need to happen at the board level, at the AD level, and so that way you have a trickle down. You know, before you get to the actors, before you get to the stage managers, if you have Black people in decision-making places, you will have more Black people all throughout that theater. And you are completely right. There's no reason that a city that is 54% Black should be represented by theaters whose boards are 90+% white, whose staff are 90+% white. That is exactly correct. We've had a chance to speak to a lot of theaters. A lot of the pressure that, you know, the community has put on these theaters is what caused CRMB to do what they did and clean house for the whole Playhouse. Because I don't know if you all know CRMB's recent history with their, you know, not the associate artistic director who was there just recently, but the one who just left, Brian Cloudis. Do we know him?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Brian Cloudis was a mess. And so Brian Cloudis thought that stepping out of the position before all of his mess came to fruition and came to a head was going to save him and save the theater. But if you put in a decade of mess, one change up isn't going to happen, right? Every single theater in Atlanta that has all of these white people working for them needs to have a culture shift. Every single one of them. Now, on the other side of that, Black theaters, okay? Black theaters, we want to support Black theater. And I know my brother said that art isn't about money, but for some of us, it is, right? I'm not gonna lie. This art is all I do, okay? I don't have another job. I perform. So for me, this is what pays my bills. My health insurance is through the union, is through my art. So, like, I've done community theater. I've done the small Black theaters, you know, a while back. But Black theaters are gonna have to pay people more money. That's gonna if we're going to really bring Black people theatrically in this city to a new level, it can't just be True Colors Theater, right? True Colors passes out equity contracts, right? But these other Black theaters are going to have to find this funding, and we're going to have to, you know, talk to these city leaders. You know, there was a list that came out about Atlanta arts organizations that got funding. Did y'all hear about that list? It was 11 arts organizations, and I think on the list, Actors Express was on the list. Do y'all know this list? Not one Black organization in the city of Atlanta, in a Black city, in a city of Black art, not one Black arts organization was on that emergency funding list. Not one.
Wow.
Not one. So, right, not one. So these Black theaters, and I know Marietta and Emil up at Marietta, you know,
Right.
him included. I love that. Yes, go up there, tell Black stories, be a Black artistic director. You know, put your foot in the ground and fight for what you have and do what you got to do. But you got to pay people. You know, because this is our. It's not just our passion; it's our career. You know, so you're gonna have to pay people, and it's difficult, it's hard, but you're gonna have to pay people. So, you know, Black people have a lot of work to do as well when it comes to, you know, what we're doing in the city, and white people have a shit ton to do. You know, before I got on this call, you know, they'll tell you. I was like, hey, you know, what are your steps? You know, at ETC, what are y'all steps for transitioning into a theatrical future where more Black people are represented in your stories? Everybody who's a part of this community has to be held accountable. Every single one of them. The Tom Keys, the Susan Booths, AC and Tony, all of them, Lisa, all of them have to be held accountable, right? And so the statements are great, but they need to put out more statements that give a timeline of when they will actually make concrete steps.
Mm-hmm.
And that only happens if we continue to put pressure on these theaters.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working at a theater you know, if you get, I'm the last person to tell somebody not to work. You know, I know a lot of people want to boycott this and that. I get the boycotting, but I got babies, you know, I have babies. I got actual live children who need food, which is crazy that they eat food, but they need food, right? And so I'm going to be the last person to tell somebody that they shouldn't go somewhere and work. I'm not going to tell you that. But what I am going to tell you is that when you step into a room, don't just be an actor in that room. Be extremely active in that room. Be extremely aware in that room. When you step into that room, make sure, just like Cheyanne, I said that correctly, right?
Cheyanne,
I apologize. Just like Cheyanne went to these people and took these people and say, hey, you know, you can't do this. We have to do that in every single instance. Mm-hmm. Every single instance. That's the only way that we'll be able to really push these, and even if the people are our friends, you know, sometimes it's not that we're scared to say something, it's that, well, you're my buddy, you know, and I want to believe in you. But I got some buddies, and my buddies fuck up all the time. And so sometimes I got to tell my buddies, hey, buddy, you fucked up, and we need to move in a different direction. If you got to walk away from a show, you know, that's your feeling, walk away from a show. But every single time you take a step, like with that teacher who y'all were talking about, bro, nah, bro, you're not teaching me. You're not going to teach me. Like, you're not going to teach me. And if we need to sit down in front of whoever we need to sit down with, if that's the president, whoever it is, before we need to sit down together. I need to record this conversation, and you need to say what you have to say, because this isn't, you know, it can't fly, right? It is no longer acceptable for these people to operate this way.
Yeah.
We have to agree that it is no longer acceptable. It can't be like, well, you know what? That kind of sucked, but that's the way of no. It's just no longer acceptable, including the union. The union's doing some jacked up stuff. I had to get on some of the union people because they're raising the premium by 200%.
What?
You know? Yeah, bro. It's wild out here.
Damn, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and not only that, they're also not giving you. So I lost 2 contracts because of COVID, right? And you have to have weeks to get your health insurance. They're not honoring any of those weeks that you would have earned if COVID hadn't happened. Only if you worked those weeks. So if you didn't work during quarantine and you needed those weeks, you're not going to have health insurance. And if you do qualify for health insurance, you're going to be paying $200 more every time you have to pay your premium than you did before.
Wow. That's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's legit, y'all. It's legit crazy out here. Actors Express has 3 black board members. 3 black board members. You want to know why? You want to know why they do all white shows? Because they have 3 black board members. A lot of times theaters will hire low-wage, front-facing black people to put in front of house, to put as this, you know, maybe a director here or there. But you gotta get on this board. Write to these teams and tell them, hey, we see their boards. Everybody on their board, it's public knowledge. You can go on their website and find out exactly who's on the board of directors of whatever theater it is. You can find it, you can see it, and if you go to a theater and you're like, you know what, this isn't a good black story, and y'all look, I get people of color, but right now I'm in a real black frame of mind. I'm not about people of color right now. Right now I'm about black folk. So if you're doing a black show, it needs to be black people and not just people of color. Mm-hmm. Right? I did a show that was a black show, but the director and choreographer was a Hispanic man. And they were like, well, you know, he's a dancer and he's ethnic. Right? Does that work? Fuck no, excuse my language. No, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't work.
But, and then like, that kind of gets me starting to talk about, because I'm Afro-Latina, I'm black, but I'm also Latina, and how I always feel like I struggle between having to like pick a side. But I'm like, no, I'm still Black. It's just I listen to Spanish music and I eat sazon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that kind of like, to me, but I get what you're saying. And then it's like, what about the people, like, then there's that issue of like colorism even within our own community. It's like, what can we do to help stop that? Because we do that to each other sometimes without even realizing.
Well, I mean, yes, it happens all the time. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and tell you that I haven't been cast and stuff, because sometimes I could look like I'm from somewhere else. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you that
We all have.
It absolutely is.
Same.
My dad's an immigrant, right? And he kind of looks like me, but with wavy hair. So, you know, sometimes I'll be like, yeah, you know, I could kind of do an accent. Do you need an accent? It happens. So we have to be aware enough to know that we are going into a situation where that it is detrimental to a whole nother group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Right.
with that being said, I have never gone into a situation where, you know, they're asking for a Latinx person, and I'm like, well, I'm light-skinned, so I can kind of pass. No, I'm not going to do that. You know, because I think that's, I mean, on my part, I think that's discriminatory, even as an actor, for me to even step into that situation. You know, there was a situation like that happened last year at a theater. I won't name the theater, even though they fired all their staff. So now we know who the theater is. There was a situation last year. We had to write to the theater. We had to write to this theater because in an African-American role, they cast a Latina woman. Why? Because, I mean, she was kind of brown. She had curly hair. This is not a Black woman. Like, there, and then we have to also know that there's a difference even within the Latinx community. Not all Latinx people are Black people.
Thank you. Somebody said
like,
it.
Just because you're a Latinx person and you have curly hair doesn't make you a Black Latinx person. It doesn't at all. You know, so it's that's why I said that question is very multifaceted. It's very intricate. There's a lot of stuff that's happening within just the Atlanta theater community, not even going into, you know, what I've experienced outside of Atlanta, but just in this community, there is so much going on that we can take a stab at just within our daily lives. Like everything that's happening at Kennesaw State with those alum and those students coming out, speaking out against what those crazy ass people are doing at Kennesaw State. You know, it's little stuff like that. Like it doesn't have to be marching in the street. I walked into an audition one time and a theater was doing Aida. And at my audition, I told them, I'm not interested in doing an Aida where the Egyptians are white people and the Nubians are Black people. I don't want to be a part of that story. You should feel confident and emboldened enough to, and it's not about being a troublemaker, it's just about speaking truth. You shouldn't have to do a show where the Egyptians are white people. You shouldn't have to. And you shouldn't be punished because of that. And now that we have social media, you know, it is very easy for us to bring attention to this foolishness that is happening. Another thing I say, get a lot of, whatever you can, get it in writing. Which is why at the Alliance, I didn't want to just say anything to that man. I sent him an email. I copied stage management on that email. I copied the designers on the email. Get everything you can in writing. Because when people, even if it's a text message, you know, even if it's a text message or Facebook Messenger, because now it's harder for people to backtrack over what they wrote. And I know you asked what keeps us, you know, what keeps us going for this stuff. You know, I have children. You know, I have children who want to perform, and I think it's a lot easier for me right now to try to nip whatever I can in the bud while they're still small than for them to have to come to me when they're 18, 19, 20 years old saying somebody called me a nigga at a theater and then I have to go fight an artistic director. That's wild. You know, I don't want to have to do that. So let's just nip it in the bud right now.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, y'all. That was my little rant. I'm done. I'm finished.
That's all right. Does anybody else have any final things they'd like to add?
Yeah, whenever you first asked the question, what keeps us going, it's basically piggybacking off of Marcus and Justin. The first thing I actually thought about were my nieces and nephews. And as many people say they don't want people in their family or people younger than them to have to grow up in a time like this. Well, I definitely don't want to look on the news and see my nieces and nephews marching whenever they become, you know, in their teens or 20s or whatever. So for me, them alone kind of keep me going and keep me wanting to do this until we actually see change. Also, it's what Justin said earlier. It makes me, I don't know. It's something extremely powerful about going to a protest. I've been to protests here in Atlanta. I've been to protests in Habersham County, which is predominantly white. And I've been to, it's like all white and like a tiny, and some Hispanics and then like 2% black people. And then in Tampa, we accidentally stumbled across a protest on accident. But what makes me so excited is that at almost every single protest I've been to, it's been majority white people. And I say that because it feels different to know that they're supporting us and to see them. And it's not like, it's the white people that don't look like they would be there. I'll say it that way. They look conservative. They look like Republicans. I'm not saying they are, but you know the facade and the stigma and the stereotype that comes along with certain white people that look a certain way. And just seeing them there, shouting out loud, seeing them stand in front of us when there's a line of officers pointing guns at us for no reason, seeing them say, stand behind me, just seeing them on the front line, shouting for our rights, shouting for our equality, shouting that, you know, what's going on is wrong, and they recognize it. Those are kind of things that make me super happy. And again, unpopular opinion, I don't care what anybody thinks. When I see people on the side of the road holding up Black Lives Matter signs, it makes me feel super safe, and it makes me feel very loved. So it might not be enough for some people, but for me, it's that little bit of hope I need to not give up. I live in North Druid Hills near Toco Hills. It's basically like all white people over here.
Oh, turn up, bro.
And whenever I drive to the gym, multiple times, there's a couple of hundred people on the side of the road, and not one of them are black. And they're old white people. And it looks like they're grandkids. And they're holding up signs that say, Black Lives Matter. We love you. The system is corrupt. We want change too. We will protest until change comes. And they're just standing with us. And like I said, that literally gives me the most hope, because we can scream it all day long, and we will. But when they join in with us and the world join in with us, it's like, you can't ignore the world. Like New Zealand, Australia, these other countries, Canada, all of these other countries are like coming to bat for black
Germany.
Germany, they are not screaming people of color matter. They are not screaming all lives matter. They are literally screaming Black Lives Matter. They're talking about black people. They're talking about me. They're telling me I matter. They care about me. Like, and that is just so hopeful. Like, that just gives me so hope. And it's letting me know that although there are still racist people in the world, there are still people who hate us, people who don't understand. It just lets me know that we are nowhere near alone. And we have way more people on our side and fighting for us than I ever knew. I never knew we had this many people on our side supporting us. And it makes the racist people seem smaller and smaller. And it makes the KKK seem smaller and smaller. Like, I literally have no fear of a racist. I have no fear of a KKK member. I have no fear of a Ku Klux Klan group, because I just know that I'm surrounded by so many people who oppose them. And I've seen it with I've seen it with my own eyeballs. I've seen police officers hold up guns to me and my friends at a protest for no reason. And the white people literally make me go behind them. If they're willing to stand in front of that barrel, I think that's just a lot. I think that's a lot. And that means something to me. It means a lot to me. Because if they didn't mean it, they would have ran or they'd have left us there by ourselves. But they stood in front and guarded us and protected us with everything they had. So those kinds of things is what give me hope. All right, I'm done.
For me, actually, being surrounded by people in, marches and protests is incredibly affirming. But personally, my biggest motivation most recently has just been anger. I've had a lot of time by myself with my thoughts to just watch things and listen to things, and so much more time to review. And it's always been wrong. It's always been unacceptable. But when you're surrounded by it day after day after day, there's a point where you can't ignore it. You can't say, you're too busy going to work or going to auditions or trying to pay bills or anything. There's too much of it for me to not want to do something about
it. Man.
Mine, briefly, I had a high school friend of mine who avid wearer of the rebel flag. And I know he's not racist. And like I told him, even in a debate we had, that I knew he wasn't racist, but he was uninformed. He was very misinformed on what that symbol meant, as well as many others. And after going through like a banter, because he's one of those people, he will listen. And so we went back and forth. It was me and maybe 4 other people. And at the end of it, he burned up all of his Dixie Outfitter stuff and his big rebel flag that was on the back of his truck. Now, granted, somebody's like, oh, that's one person, but that's one person that knows me. And to see that impact, and to see him like somebody who has done this his entire life, like that has kids and is now telling his kids like, hey, I messed up, I got it wrong, and we need to fix this. So to me, that gave me probably the most hope to not be so mad, but to actually educate. And I know everybody has the argument, well, we didn't make the problem, so it's really not our place to educate or anything like that. Don't ask me to educate you. Listen. And that's the truth. However, at the end of the day, if you have the means to educate, do so. I'm an educator. That's what I went to school for.
Amen.
And even though I went to school to be a music educator, I can educate in things that I'm well versed in. And I feel like it's my place to do that. And when I have other people that don't look like me, that are white, that join in with those causes with me, it just elevates me and gives me more hope to be like, okay, I am doing what I need to do in order for people to improve on this issue. So that's just my ray of hope.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I really want to take the time to say that it's been a privilege to be here with you all and to hear you all speak and to hear your concerns and to hear your stories. It's been very touching and empowering for me. And I hope everybody who's watching this on June 19th feels empowered to protest, feels empowered to donate to Black Lives Matter, to fight the injustices that we still face today. It was so great to meet all of you. We should have their social media in the comment section, but please follow their social media. Please buy their art, watch them when the world decides to open back up and we can all start working again. But thank you all so much. It's been a privilege to be here with you, and I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Irene.
Oh, great.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here and having this experience with us. Normally, this is where I would tell you to subscribe to Crux Theater, and you should do that. But it is even more important to me that as you've heard the stories that you've heard today, that the best thing that you can do for me, all these beautiful artists that joined us here, and all the beautiful Black people in your life, the most important thing that you can do is go out and protest if you can, if you're able. Donate to bail funds, donate to Black Lives Matter funds, donate to funds that support people who have been wrongly murdered by the police, by white individuals. Support them where you can, listen to them, hear what they're trying to tell you, what we've been going through for years, and the outcry that we have for things to change. Vote in legislation that will help us. Vote in your local elections. These are the important things that you can do to help us from here to secure a better future for Black lives and other people of color out there for us. Thank you, Atlanta. Stay safe. Black Lives Matter. And we'll see you next week.